And so it then brings us to another interesting talking point, which is, let's say someone is listening to this and they think, well, I'm not happy about the fact that my tax paying money is going somewhere that I don't have a say in. It's going towards a cause that I don't have a say in. I'm not happy about the fact that I'm working away, earning an honest income, and a part of that income is being taken and sent somewhere for a cause that I haven't had a say in. I'm not happy about that. Let's imagine someone watching is having these feelings bubble to the surface. So what can one do? Can one stand in front of a government? Can one try to take on a government's agenda? A country's agenda? Of course not. So this idea that you're going to go out with your pitchfork and make a point, do not waste your time, would be a solid piece of advice. If you are unhappy about that particular circumstance, and perhaps this is the ultimate lesson, because if you've watched the show from start to finish, and let's imagine you are listening to this and you're thinking, I actually don't like the fact that I haven't been consulted about where my tax-paying money is actually going. Why do I not have a say in this? So let's imagine that's how you feel. Now, some people mightn't give a fiddler's. Some people might say, I like Ukraine. I like having Ukraine as an ally. And I have no problem with my tax-paying money going towards Ukraine. Because I don't like big Vladimir. Now, Putin. Can't be having him. Come on, Ukraine. I'm supporting Ukraine. There may be somebody in a circumstance like that who thinks it's great. And they have no problem with their money going towards Ukraine. They have no problem with taxes being increased. They have no problem with money printing and inflation that comes from money printing. So you may have someone like that. That's fine. If you are one of those people, then you can tune out of this particular circumstance and you don't have to worry because you clearly support the cause. That's fine. But let's say you are someone who isn't happy with the fact that your tax-paying money is going to a cause that you don't have a say in, or up until now you haven't had a say in it. And you've got elected officials, politicians, leaders, policymakers who are making decisions on your behalf. And you yourself haven't actually had a direct way to voice your opinion about this issue. And so as a result, you are pissed off about this particular circumstance. So we have sort of already talked about the idea of you going out with your pitchfork and standing in front of the government building and saying, hey, I don't want my money to go there. I want it to go here. Listen to me. And you wag your pitchfork at the government building. And then you see some people in the government building look out the window and say, yep, there is a demented person outside with a pitchfork. They're waving it at the building. Could you send down security and just remove this guy? And let's say security comes down and you continue to wave your pitchfork angrily because you feel like you're not being heard. And then the police come. And then the police say, actually, you're obstructing the building here. And, people are feeling a little bit threatened. Well, now you're in trouble because the police officers are going to taser you. And you're going to be lying on the ground, wriggling. Then you're going to find yourself in front of a judge because you've assaulted a police officer. And the judge is going to say, you are an unhinged individual. You engaged in some horrendous behaviour, attacking our police force. You're going to be sentenced to 2 years in prison. So we don't want to go out with pitchforks and get aggressive and start investing our time and energy in that particular way. It is not going to yield anything productive. Because no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you are just one person. And you are one person against institutions. You are not going to win that particular battle, let's just say. You are going to come off worse. And so you may feel deflated now and think, well, so what can I do then? Well, there's lots you can do, actually. And it goes back to something we've said before. If this is a deal breaker for you, and you are really unhappy about, let's say, the fact that the UK, Germany, France, the European Union, if you're a part of this collective group of countries that is acting as an ally to Ukraine and sending money to fund Ukraine's war effort, if you're really irritated about this issue, and it's a deal breaker, and it's just really impacting your entire life's existence, we've talked about something along these lines before. What can you do? Well, there's this thing called opting out. And what does it mean to opt out? Well, if you're unhappy with a particular set of rules in a particular part of the planet, you are allowed to move to a different part of the planet. That is still allowed. You can go onto the internet, you can buy a plane ticket and fly to a different location in the planet or on the planet where the rules and regulations are slightly different, because not every country has the exact same rules and regulations. Not every country on the planet is an ally of Ukraine. And so if you are really unhappy about these circumstances surrounding taxpayer money going towards Ukraine, around the fact that taxes are going to be potentially increased in order to help continue to fund this conflict out in Ukraine, if you're unhappy about the fact that there's a lot of money printing going on and that inflation's out of control and you can't afford things, the economic climate is gloomy and miserable, if you're unhappy with all of these things and it's a deal breaker for you, then guess what? You can go somewhere else where the rules of the game are slightly different and where the rules of the game are more in a line with what you want. Simple. It's a simple solution. I'm not saying it's an easy solution, because maybe people are anchored to certain locations. Maybe you have kids, maybe you've a wife, maybe you have commitments. Excuses, that's what I would say. Because if it's a real deal breaker for you, and it's something that really needs to change in your life, then you'll find a way to make it work. Because if something's a deal breaker, then it's extremely important. It's a high priority item. And it's not as if you don't have the option. You have both the means to travel. We have buses, we have cars, we have airplanes, we have trains. It's not as if you don't have the means to travel. Travel isn't particularly expensive. So you have the means to travel. You probably have the financial ability to travel. It's just a case of getting your shoulder to the wheel and finding out, where is there a location on the planet whereby what I care about is actually honoured. So if you don't want your taxpayers' money to go to a particular cause because you happen to be born geographically in an area that happens to be an ally to Ukraine, well then guess what? You can go find another country that is not an ally of Ukraine, that won't be sending your taxpayer money to Ukraine. There are lots of countries on the planet that aren't an ally of Ukraine. And you have to do your due diligence, because if it's a deal breaker and it's a high enough priority issue for you, then you will move. And that is a perfectly legitimate play on the chessboard. It's like anything. If you are unhappy with the crime in your local area, what is the best thing to do? If you're living in an area where crime is getting out of control and it's dangerous to walk on the streets, we can try to come up with all of these fancy strategies for making your life better, by staying in the area. But you know what the best option is? Move. Move somewhere where the crime rate is lower. Move somewhere where it's safer. Move somewhere where you can walk on the streets without fearing for your life. This is no different. We're just changing things slightly from fear of crime to frustration that your tax-paying money is being used for a cause that you haven't been consulted with about. So regardless, if crime is a deal breaker for you in your local area, then you need to move. If this issue whereby your country happens to be an ally of Ukraine, and if you now understand some of the basic underlying mechanics of what it means to be an ally to Ukraine in 2025, if you understand those underlying mechanics and you're unhappy with what you're hearing, and you think, I don't want this. I want my taxpayers' money to be going back into the area that I live in. I want to benefit from my own fucking taxpayers' money. Me. I want to benefit. I want my local area and community to benefit. I don't want it to be sent to some location that I've never been to that I don't know. If that's how you think, if that's what your stance is on that particular issue, then just like crime, if you're in a crime-ridden area and you're feeling unsafe, forget about trying to do this mental gymnastics with respect to how can I make it work? How can I make it work by staying here? Don't let your energy conservation mechanism stop you from doing the right thing, because that's really what it comes down to. Some people may say, I don't have the finances to move. I don't buy that. I think that's an excuse. I really do. Because I am almost sure the vast majority of people, if I cross-examined them and I looked at what they are spending their money on, they are probably spending their money on absolutely irrelevant, unnecessary things. But they're comfy. They're little things that can enrich one's existence. And they don't want to give them up. But if I were to cross-examine someone seriously, I guarantee you, if it's a big enough issue for you, if this happened to be a big enough issue for you, all you would have to do is defeat your energy conservation mechanism. Because we all know that if we have to move to a different country, let's say we are unhappy that by being an ally of Ukraine, we have to move to a different country. We would all understand, we would all feel that initial tinge of, or this sort of uncomfortable feeling of, oh, this is going to take effort. This is going to require me to invest a lot of energy and brain power into finding a location, getting the resources together, making it work, finding a property, finding a new job elsewhere. You can feel the energy conservation mechanism wants you to just stay where you are, play it safe, hope for the best, try to do some or implement some wee non-significant, non-impactful measure so that you can just stay here. This is the thing. If this is a big enough issue to you, you can of course move somewhere else. And anybody telling me that they can't do it because of reason X, Y, and Z is probably, in all likelihood, making excuses because they are fucking lazy. They are whining, they are bitching, they are complaining. They're just whining about their current circumstances. And they're just having a good yap. And you know what? They're really not that interested. They just want to bitch about it. If you're really serious, there will be no whining, no bitching, no complaining. You will be thinking, how can I make this work? And you mightn't be able to make it work immediately. That's fine. It may take you 6 months. It may take you a year. It may take you 2 years to work yourself into a position whereby you can move somewhere out of this current arrangement and agreement that you have with your current country to a different country with a different set of rules that are more favourable for your own specific circumstances. It may take time. You may need to plan it out meticulously. That's fine. A lot of people may not have the ability to just move, pivot on the spot and go somewhere. That's fine. You don't have to do it right now. You can plan it out. Take your time, work through it methodically. Brainstorm with some people that you trust. Maybe have a little trip out for a week to certain locations that you would be considering as potential new homes for you. As a new home country. Take a trip out here. Take a trip out there. Talk with people on the ground. Get boots on the ground. Go online. Use the internet. Connect with people through the internet. Get their feedback. Maybe people who live in the country as natives. Maybe people who have moved from your country to that country for a similar reason or for some other reason. You can see that it's going to take energy. It's going to take you to defeat your energy conservation. You're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to plan. Is it an inconvenience? Maybe it is. But if the issue means enough to you, you won't be whining, you won't be bitching, you won't be complaining, you won't be making excuses. Because there's nothing more that people love to do in many instances than just have a good bitch and whine and then do fuck all about it. How often do we hear people yapping and moaning about, oh, isn't it just terrible? Isn't the current circumstances here in my country just terrible? Well, if it means enough to you, if you really think they're that terrible, go somewhere else. Oh, I couldn't do that. I have a family. Oh no, I've got job. I've got friends here. I couldn't do that. It's like immediately the excuses just fly out of their mouths. They can't wait to tell you why they can't do it. Which leads me to believe that they're not really serious. At all. They're just having a good moan. They're having a wee moment where they can just complain and bitch and not take action. If you are not one of those people and you're hearing me talk about the war in Ukraine or the war between Ukraine and Russia, and if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking to yourself, what is the lesson in this? Why is the Bandido going on about this story? How is there a lesson here? Well, there is a lesson here. Because if you're listening to this and you are happy with the fact that your money as a taxpayer is being given to Ukraine, if you're happy with the fact that taxes are going to rise and you're going to have to give more money to the government so that they can send it to Ukraine, and if you're happy with the fact that there's money printing going on and that the currency is being devalued and that your savings are dissolving and that items are becoming more costly to purchase, if you're happy with all that, so that Ukraine's war effort can be funded on your behalf without your say, fine. Then you're in the right place. You don't need to move anywhere. But if you are one of these people who is listening to this, and let's say this issue is a deal breaker for you, you're listening and you're saying, I don't like this arrangement. I don't like this arrangement between me and my country. I don't like the fact that my taxpayer money is going to this cause without my say. I don't like the fact that taxes are going to rise so that this war effort for our ally can be sustained. I don't like the fact that there's a whole bunch of money printing going on and that inflation is running rampant and that it's harder to purchase things and that my savings are dissolving. I don't like this. I don't like any of this. Okay, well, if you are that person, the big lesson from tonight's show is you need to get your shoulder to the wheel. If this is a deal breaker for you and you don't like this current arrangement, well then it's time to start planning your exit. You're allowed to do it. It's not illegal. There's nothing illegal about saying, I want to go and live in a different part of the world. Is it inconvenient? Perhaps. Is it going to take a lot of energy and time invested in making this process work? Yes. Will it maybe piss some people off? Some of your friends, some of your family? Maybe. But if it's a deal breaker for you, you're going to get to work. You may not be able to execute upon this plan right now. You may need to work your way up to it. That's fine. You can quietly work away until you get yourself into a position of power. When you're in a financial position of power and you've managed to get rid of all your anchors that are keeping you lodged, essentially, in the bay, once your boat has got rid of all its anchors and you're able to set sail, off you go. You've done your due diligence, you've used the internet to your benefit, you've got feedback from other people that have went to this particular country that you may be interested in, you've maybe spent a week or 2 weeks out in the country, you've got a feel for it, you've put in all the work, and guess what? All you have to do is buy a plane ticket. It's not illegal, it's perfectly legal, it just takes a bit of energy invested, a bit of time invested, a bit of planning, and the right attitude. Okay. So that is our story. That's our Sunday special. The war between Russia and Ukraine. And in underneath all of this, because it's taken us a while to work up to this point where there's actually a visible lesson from this particular story. But hopefully that we've now worked our way up to it. You can see that there is indeed a golden nugget sitting in this particular article. And maybe it's not the lesson that you might have thought, but it's a way for us to look at the world. If you live in a part of the world and you are not happy with some element or elements of that particular part of the world that we're going to call a country, if you're not happy with the rules, regulations, or the way that that particular country is being run at any given moment, you have the right to move. You're allowed to do it. All you have to do is defeat your energy conservation mechanism that doesn't want to go to the effort of doing it. And then what you have to also do is refrain from whining, bitching, and complaining. Because that shouldn't be an issue. If this is a big enough issue for you, we shouldn't be hearing any excuses. Anybody who is giving you excuses is not serious. They're just full of shit. They're just whining for the sake of whining. Because that's who they are. That's what they do. That's how they think their time should be used. They think whining, bitching, and complaining is a productive use of their time. All right, you continue to do that. But for those of us who are paying attention to things and who may be unhappy with arrangements that we have between ourselves and the place in which we live, it doesn't matter if it's your local area that's crime-ridden or if you're living in a country that is taking your money and funneling it elsewhere. It doesn't matter what the issue is. This particular article is talking about the issue of the war between Russia and Ukraine. It could be anything. If there's something about the place in which you live that you do not like, it's nice to remind ourselves, folks, that with a bit of diligent effort and time invested, and due diligence invested in the process, we can relocate to a different part of the world where the rules and regulations are actually to our favour for our own specific circumstance in life. Okay, so what are we on? An hour and 24 minutes. Sunday special indeed. Let us go over to our live chat and see if there are any comments in our live chat. Of course, it can be hit and miss with the live chat. Sometimes we have comments, sometimes we do not. Let's see if we've got any comments. If you guys have been interacting with tonight's show, if you've got any insights to drop, any pearls of wisdom with respect to this particular story that we've had on our Sunday special. Let's get into the live chats. Let's have a look and see. Let's see what you guys are saying about this show tonight. So, we have one comment One comment in the live chat. We've managed to eke out one. Let me make sure, because there was actually a problem with the live chat last night, whereby I missed a few of the comments. So let me just make sure that I have everything. I can see all of these live chats. Okay, so I can confirm that we do indeed have one live chat. Let's see who is commenting. We have JGZ2IB. He's back in the chat tonight. I'm just going to call him JZ, because he has a J and a Z in his name. It's a whole jumbling of letters and numbers. So I'm just going to call him JZ. Let's see what JZ say. JZ is saying the following. Friedrich Merz with a German flag. Apparently his popularity is a poo emoji. We can assume that means his popularity is shite. So I think Jay-Z is helping the old Bandido out. The Bandido said that he was familiar with Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France. The Bandido was familiar with Keir Starmer, the leader of the United Kingdom. But the Bandido was not familiar with the leader, the president, the prime minister, whatever his title is in Germany. I wasn't familiar with his name, but it seems that old Jay-Z here in the chat has commented, and let me know what his name is. Friedrich Merz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Friedrich Merz. That seems to be the German leader. Old Friedrich. And Jay-Z, in the comments, has also added that apparently his popularity is shite. But you see, Jay-Z seems to be very gentle with his language, because instead of saying shite, he just put a poo emoji. Apparently his popularity is insert poo emoji. So I think it's fair to interpret Jay-Z's comment as Friedrich, the German chancellor, I suppose we should call him, or whatever the term is, president, leader. Old Friedrich, his popularity seems to be shite. Premium grade manure. Perhaps Jay-Z spinning us a yarn. I haven't checked this up, but I think, given what we've talked about in some of our previous episodes here on Bandido Talks, sometimes the public's view of politicians isn't particularly favourable. I think it would be fair to say in the modern age, 2025, with the internet revealing some interesting truths about our political figures, it is perhaps not unreasonable to say that a particular politician's popularity may warrant the poo emoji. Perhaps that's reasonable. And so Jay-Z is telling us that according to his research, old Friedrich, the German chancellor, who is part of this group along with the France and the UK, who are opposing this war peace plan from Mr. Trump over in the United States. Old Friedrich, he's opposing it. Well, according to Jay-Z, Friedrich's popularity seems to be shite over in Germany. Not entirely unsuspected. Not entirely surprising. But we're going to take Jay-Z's word for it. Word on the street is that old Emmanuel Macron, his popularity isn't particularly great either. Oh, and surprise, surprise, Keir Starmer, he isn't the flavour of the month either. So here we have Friedrich, Emmanuel, and Keir. Three incredibly admired human beings among the populations of France, Germany and the United Kingdom, making decisions about war peace plans on behalf of the public. Interesting indeed. Perhaps it's fake news. Maybe they're super popular. Maybe we should look at the polls from the BBC. Maybe the PBC, they would be able to give us a poll about how popular Friedrich and Emmanuel and Keir are in their respective countries. Maybe the BBC, maybe good old Tim Davie. Tim, you should get back over to the BBC. Tell them to generate a poll so that us folk here on Bandido Talks, so that we can make sure that we're not being fed fake news. Maybe Jay-Z isn't telling the truth. Maybe the word on the street isn't correct. Maybe Keir Starmer, maybe Emmanuel Macron, and maybe old Friedrich Merz, maybe they're super popular. And maybe it's a nasty rumour. Maybe the populations, the citizens in Germany, France and the UK, maybe they greatly admire these political figures. And the Bandido has been consuming fake news. Tim, get onto that poll. Get in contact with old... What was his name we were talking about last night? The dude. We had a story last night. Some dude with the BBC on the BBC board had stepped down. Schmidt! Tim, get in contact with old Schmidt. Tell him to get back on the board of the BBC and tell them to run a poll to make sure that the Bandido isn't consuming fake news. The Bandido needs to know if Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and old Friedrich Merz, the Bandido needs to know if they are actually popular within their own countries. Because the Bandido could be consuming fake news. We couldn't have that. Tim and Schmidt, get on to it. Maybe I'll give you a job here at Bandido Talks, if you can honour my wishes. Anyway, let's make sure that we've got no more live chats that I've missed. That seems to be everything. So, with that, folks, I think that's going to draw tonight's show to a close. Again, if you enjoyed the show tonight, feel free to give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If, of course, you are watching the show after it has been posted, then get down into the comments section. Let me know your thoughts about what we've covered here on the show. And again, if you like what we do here at Bandido Talks, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We are, of course, live every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here at 7 p.m. on YouTube. You'll always have your 3 live shows. We'll always have an upload every Tuesday. Could be a best bits, could be a guest episode. It'll probably be a best bits episode this Tuesday coming. So lots of content coming your direction. Keep an eye out for our YouTube shorts as well, where we'll be also giving you some of the best bits throughout the shows this week. And with that, I hope that you have had a very enjoyable weekend. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. May you have a very successful incoming week. And I hope to see you, all being well, live next Friday here on YouTube at 7 p.m. We'll be doing a little bit of reflecting on our Tuesday upload. So all being well, I'll see you all next Friday, 7 p.m. for our first live show of next week. That is our final live show for this week. And with all of that, folks, it is over and out this week from the Bandido.